And then the exercises that we're going to do is in here, we're going to do underscore loops here. And there's going to be things in here that aren't, that we didn't cover, like filter, and you can just read the underscore documentation to find more information on how filter works. And if you finish ahead of time, I have more underscore exercises that you can dive into. So we're going to use in each loop to loop through an array and console.log the different values. And the way we would do that is here we have our array, and here's our callback function here. We wanted to console log the value, so this is going to be the value. This will be the index, and this one would be the list. So if we want to console.log the value, we do that. And then if we wanted to console.log the index, we would do it that way. And how would this be different if you were looping through an object? Anyone?
Do the properties?
Yeah, so the main difference, there's not really a big difference. The only difference is that instead of the indexes, it would just be the properties. It would just be, you could still call it index and it wouldn't matter. Cool. So our second function is called check value. It searches an array for a certain value. If it contains that value, it will return true. Otherwise, it will return false. So here we are with just our regular for loop. We are initializing it I at 0, and we're going to loop while I is less than array.length, and then we're going to +1 every time. And for every index of the array, we're going to run this block. So we're going to say if array at I, so the first one is 0. Oh, I should do this. So check value. So we're going to check the value for by. So it's going to say if array at I, the first time is going to be 0. So if bonjour is the same as by, oops, I'm sorry. We have to do this. Let's start over. So we're passing hello array, and we're also passing by as the string that we're checking to see if that is in the array. So we're looping through, so the first one would be bonjour, and the value that we're checking against is by, so that doesn't equal each other, so we won't enter into this block here. We're going to skip this, and then we're going to run it again. And it says if hello equals by, and it doesn't, so it's going to skip it again, and we'll run this block one more time. And it says hola, so does hola equal goodbye? No, so then it's going to skip this if block, and then this for loop is done. So then we're going to return false. However, for hello, or let's just do bonjour. For bonjour, we are going to say, we're going to loop through the array, and if bonjour equals bonjour, which it does, we're going to skip in here and we're going to return true. The important thing about returning true right here is that it's going to break out of if, and it's going to break out of the for, and it's going to break out of the function. So the entire function at that point will return true. It's going to stop looping. So be really careful about where you're returning if you're returning inside a for loop. You want to make sure that you really want to stop looping at that point where you have that return statement. Cool, and then so that same thing with bonjour. Put this down here. I'm sorry, with each. It's been a long 2 days of teaching. So the same check value with each. And how we're going to do that is because we can't return anything from each, we have to initialize the value before it and return it after. So we're going to loop through, and we're going to check if the value, the first value, equals val, etc., etc. If it does, we're going to say result is true. And it will, but this won't stop the loop. It will keep looping. And then once we're done looping out of the each, we're going to return the result. And so result is false unless proven true. And it will be proven true in here. Otherwise, it will just remain false, and that's fine. We're going to return it down there. Any questions about those first few ones?
Looking at underscore, it also has a sum function.
Underscore has a
Yeah.
sum function, like SOM.
SOME,
Mm-hmm.
which will break out the first time it returns false or
Mhm.
true.
Cool. Yep.
Be more efficient than each.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So underscore has tons and tons of awesome utility functions that you can go through, and once you get more familiar with the library, these things will just come to you. Cool. So we're going to write a loop that pushes all the values in an object to an array. We're going to skip this and we're just going to do the map. And so we're going to say var, what is it, my nums equals map. And so map is going to loop through this object. And it's going to, and then the first parameter is the value. The second one is going to be the property name, right? So just for reference. And then we're just going to return val. So val is going to be 2, 4, 3, and this is the number, not the string, and 12. However, if we wanted to return the property names, we could just return prop. And that would return an array of property names. Cool. Any questions on that one? Cool. So and then the last one is filter. It's really similar to map and each, except filter only returns the true. Hold on, let me think how to explain this. So for the callback function, filter just returns, it will just add it if it's true. Okay, actually let me double check that. Now I'm starting to doubt myself. Let's look up filter. So loops through the list. Oh yeah, so pass a truth test. So if, oh I see, so I actually implemented it wrong, excuse me. So we can just return, it will give the value if this is true. So val mod 2 will equal 0 if val is even. And then we can double check this. Just to make sure. Uh-oh, syntax error. Oh. Okay.
The curly bracket at the end, I think.
Oh. Thank you. Of course. So I need to, whenever you see this error, underscore is not defined, that means you don't have the library in that window. And you can always do a quick check here. Whoops, not that one. Just by, you can literally just type underscore. And for some reason, on the annotated source code page, we don't have underscore loaded. But if we check here, we see that we have underscore, it just returns an object, or a function, I'm sorry. There we go. Val is not defined. Val. There we go. So that's filter. So filter is going to push whatever values in the array, or I'm sorry, in the object or the array, into an array if this function returns true. So val mod 2 is true, is equals 0 when it's even. Does everyone know how the modular works? Thumbs on modulo. Okay, cool. Awesome. So do you have any questions on those exercises? Let me put the correct answer. Up.
Yeah, I have a question on line 43 there.
Mm-hmm.
So map runs through your object, pulls out each property that you're returning, and then that looks like magic to me that it puts it into that array.
It looks like magic. Is that a question? Is it magic?
Where's my nums?
So
I mean, my nums is declared right there on line 43, right?
Right.
So we're not telling it's an array, it's an object or anything. So JavaScript.
Well, map always returns an array. So that's
Map
just
does?
map. Yeah, the mechanics of map is that it's always going to return an array, and that array is always going to contain the values that are returned from this function.
Okay.
So since we're returning the val here, we know that that's going to be an array of the values. And filter is really similar, except that if the value returns true, it will save that into an array. So it's still looping. The only difference with map is that the array is going to be the length of the original array or object. So this length is important. So we have four properties. So we know that for map, it's going to return an array with 4 indices. And filter is cool because you can sort of decide on how long that's going to be. So you couldn't use map to filter, for example. Even though it kind of seems like it, because filter also returns an array and map returns an array. Map, it always, just the mechanics of the loop, it's always just going to return the same length. And since filter is shorter usually, or the same size or shorter, you can't use map.
So will you get a bunch of like undefined gaps? So like if you did the modulus on 3, that'd be undefined. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. So and the difference here is that this is actually just returning true or false. This isn't returning the value, you know. Where here you actually have to explicitly return the value. If we did this in map, it would just return. It would then be an array of true or false values. Cool. Oh, just went away. Awesome. So that concludes our everything. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. I'll stick around for more questions. Just a couple things. Mark will be sending out a link to submit for solutions, and I'll submit them all in bulk later today. What else? So we teach these classes live at Hack Reactor about once a month. We have a different class that we teach to the public. You can find that on Meetup, so www.meetup.com/Hack Reactor. We have all our events there. We have regular meetups too, study groups, etc. And we also teach these classes through there, all live in person in San Francisco. Yeah, thank you guys so much, and I really appreciate everything.